Good afternoon. Today's lesson is on triangles in general, and specifically the measure of their interior angles, the three angles of a triangle, and how they three add up to 180. We just got through with Pythagorean's theorem where we could find lengths of sides in a right triangle, that is. Now we're going to talk about how we can find missing angle measures if we have two of the other angle measures. It's really not that difficult. We have three types of triangles I want to talk about. The first one's a scalene. A scalene basically means all three angles are different measure and all three sides are different length. Well, if we're talking just the angles, what's nice about the three angles, regardless of the size or shape of the triangle, the three interior angles must add up to 180. So if I was to add 95.58 to 38.1 to 46.32, it would add up to 180. This allows us to find a missing angle if we have the other two. So if I was to give you a different triangle and I was to cover up one of these, you could add the 62.96 to the 71.92 and subtract that from 180 and get the 45.12 degrees. So it's quite simple to find the third angle if you have two on a triangle. Sometimes, though, they don't give you two angles. They only give you one in a sense because the other angle is either known or two of the angles are the same. So I'm specifically speaking of a right triangle and isosceles. Let's look at the right triangle first. Right triangles are really nice as there's always one angle that's 90 degrees. So you don't even have to add up to 180. You can just realize the other two angles must add up to 90 themselves. So if one angle is 42.95, you take that value minus it from 90, and we get 47.05 for the other angle. By the way, these two angles are always acute angles, which means they're always less than 90, because we can't have a triangle that has more than one 90-degree or larger angle. So with right triangles, if they give you one of these two acute angles, just minus its value from 90 and you'll find the other acute angle. You don't even need to actually worry about the 90 degree. Just 90 minus 54.09 gives us the 35.91. The hardest one is the isosceles triangle. The isosceles triangle has two angles that are always the same side and same size, and two sides that are always the same length. Again, we're not focusing on length right now. We're just going to focus on the angle measures, which makes it nice because if you're given one of the two angles that are congruent, you automatically know the other one because they're the same size. So if I said this bottom angle was 74.26, then the other angle would be 74.26. We add those two together, subtract that from 180, we get the third angle of 31.49. Or we might be given, if I make this different looking, we might be given the top angle up here, the 46.03, and not either of the two congruent. Well, what we would do then is we would take the 46.03, minus it from 180, and then divide by 2. And we would get these two angles. Because remember, these two have to be the other portion of the 180, and they're equal in size. So 180 minus the 46.03 divided by 2 would give us 66.98 for the other two angles. Now, I said the isosceles are kind of the hardest, and I want to give you an example of what you might see on a problem. Because what you might see on a problem would look like this. An isosceles triangle has an angle that measures 80 degrees. Which other angles could be in that isosceles triangle? And then it says choose all that apply. The reason they give you this scenario is because it has two possible solutions. It doesn't tell us if this 80-degree angle is one of the congruent two or the one angle that's not congruent to either of the others. So what I've done is I've made a diagram to show you the two scenarios that happens with this 80-degree angle. Right here, if I have the 80-degree angle be one of the two congruent angles down here on the bottom, an 80 and an 80, then what I would have done is I'd say, all right, well, 80 plus 80 is 160. 180 minus the 160 would give us that third angle of 20 degrees. So 20 degrees would be the correct answer. But again, it didn't say if this was one of the two congruent. That 80 actually could have been the one angle that's not congruent. If it's not congruent, I would take the 80 and go 180 minus the 80 would give me 100, and I would take 100 and divide by 2, and 100 divided by 2 is 50, which means the two congruent angles are 50 each. So we could actually have a solution of 50 as well. In fact, sometimes we even get 3 possible solutions because it gives us, no, I guess it would only be the 2. But just realize that we could possibly have 2 solutions depending on whether the 80 is the one of the two congruent, or if the 80 is the one that isn't congruent. And the difference to solve them is we either add them together, add that number to itself twice, and subtract that from 180 to get the third angle, or we subtract this angle from 180 and divide by 2 to get the two smaller angles. So hopefully this will help you accomplish your homework. If you do have any questions, please feel free to contact me.